Good morning from here.
Oh, good morning, yes, from Toronto, Canada. There seems to be a problem with time zones, and when you're here, you think it's evening everywhere. I remember someone sang and said it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Maybe you can say hello to Kenyans.
Hello to everyone. Good to see you again.
Right? How have things been like? Your greetings usually seem to be very economical.
That's what a greeting is supposed to be. It's not a performance.
All right, we have to have you all the same. Anyone who has joined the broadcast, please, when you come in, we get to know that you're watching.
I think the last time that we spoke, the Supreme Court had not come down with its decision.
Yes.
And it did, as I expected. I think almost everything that I addressed with you came down to my prediction. I told you that the so-called Azimio had no case, that Raila was hanging on straws, and the court correctly described their petition as hot air and a wild goose chase. It was worse because I think that the court correctly stated that most of the lawyers essentially committed egregious crimes. You know, swearing a false affidavit is not a misdemeanor. It's an indictable offense. And if it was here, those lawyers would be in jail and their certificates, their licenses would be taken away. Those lawyers would never practice law again. It's a very, very serious matter because advocates are officers of the court. And if an officer of the court can forge a document, that means that they have not just attempted to undermine the administration of justice, they have actively perpetrated a fraud. And fraud is a very serious crime, whether it is fraud in relation to money or property, or more importantly, in relation to the truth. Because at the end of the day, lawyers go to court to seek justice for their clients, but not justice at any expense. So when a lawyer forges a document, they're not looking for justice. They are looking to perpetrate a fraud, which means that they want to inflict injustice on the other side. It also amounted to an attempted coup, because if someone has been validly elected like Ruto was, and you attempt to overturn that, you are perpetrating a coup. So what these people committed, and it is an extension of a long stretch of criminalities, starting with Azimio attempting to control the IDC, Azimio implanting the 4 commissioners through Uhuru Kenyatta a year before the election, and the 4 commissioners trying to impose Raila Odinga as president and prevent Chebukati from declaring the rightful winner. That is an attack on the democratic process. It's an attack on the Constitution. It's an attack on the rule of law. It's an attack on the independence of the Electoral Commission. And it's a fundamental attack on all the values and virtues that we should be ascribing for. So for me, I will only rest easy when I see these individuals behind bars, arrested, charged, prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and punished to the full extent of the law.
Okay. So at what point do you draw the line between, from what you've said, you want to see them getting punished. At what point do you draw the line between law and unnecessary punishment or vindictiveness, being vindictive? At what point do you draw the line between being vindictive and applying law on that line?
Gerald, you can only be vindictive. You can only be vindictive if you concoct an allegation. You concoct a charge. You trump up a charge and you arrest someone for nothing at all and pursue them for purposes of punishment, like they did to me. They came to my house, they didn't knock, they blew up the house, they abducted me, they detained me legally despite court orders. Then eventually they took my passport, tortured me, took my passport, and threw me out of the country. That is what vindictiveness is. It is motivated by ill will. It is motivated by spite. It is motivated by malice. It is motivated by hate. And it has no foundation in law. In this case, we are talking purely illegal activities, where someone knows or ought to know that the IBC is independent, that it must function and be seen to function independently, that when people go to vote, they must vote freely, meaning anyone who attempts to undermine with a free vote is committing a crime. So once people have voted freely, peacefully, their votes must be counted, tallied, and the correct result must be announced. If you undermine any of that process, you are committing a crime. So if you're punished, there's no vindictiveness. You are actually meeting the outcome of your action, meaning it's almost like breaking into my house. So break and enter is a crime. You should be arrested. But you know, the people who broke into my house and blew it up have not been arrested. So why shouldn't the people who beat up Chebukati be arrested? I mean, are we saying that Kenya is a society where criminality is glorified? Because the moment you say that, for example, Olekina should not be arrested, or any of those people that grabbed Chebukati and assaulted him should not be arrested, there is no reason why you are arresting muggers in the city of Nairobi, or bank robbers in the city of Nairobi, or in Kenya for that matter. There is no reason why the police shoot to kill kids who are actually starving and probably trying to find something to eat on the street. But they would look the other way when a member of parliament or a senator goes on live TV in a public facility and assaults a person running an election. That kind of impunity must not continue, in my view.
Okay, all right. So it's not vindictiveness, it is law.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Sorry. Because if it does, essentially what we are saying is that the strong are the ones who should occupy positions of power. In other words, Uhuru should have been allowed to impose whoever he wanted, and people's vote should not matter. And in fact, I heard them saying so. I heard them saying so, that voters and votes don't matter, that the people who count votes matter. It was not said by a pedestrian on the street. It was said by Uhuru Kenyatta's special advisor at the time, Mutahi Ngunyi. He said so from State House. I mean, these are chilling statements.
Okay.
We shouldn't be trying to unite with everyone.
Okay.
That's just naive and foolish. Because you can only unite with people whose values are the same as yours. And the values that you should be using as a basis for unity are positive values. So say, for example, we are uniting because you and I, we are pursuing justice. And injustice has been done, and we are saying, look, even if we disagree, let's meet here so that we can pursue justice. That's commendable. That's the kind of unity that we should be calling for. Or we are saying, Kenyans are dying of starvation. Let's unite so that we can produce more food to distribute to everyone. Or let's unite so that we can create jobs so that the youth can all be unemployed. Or let's unite so that we can construct housing for the needy. Or that we should provide healthcare for those who need healthcare, and that is everybody. Or let's unite so that we can bring more democracy, freedom, and liberty to everyone in Kenya. Those are ideals. Those are good ideals. But if you tell me that you intend to unite with a criminal who does not care about democracy, does not care about rule of law, does not care about any of these things that we are talking about. They care about their petty, selfish interest. And Uhuru is one such person. He said so. He said, I don't recognize Ruto even if he's elected by the people. I am God, so the people are wrong. I will not recognize him. I recognize Raila Odinga even though he was defeated. I mean, what kind of rubbish is that? So that's not somebody you should unite with. And I have a problem with President Ruto purporting to appoint this person, a so-called peacemaker. He cannot make peace. This man was not able to make peace in Jubilee, was he? For the last 5 years. He was not able to make peace with his own deputy president. He was not able to make peace in his own party. He was not able to make peace among Kenyans. He was abusing everybody, threatening everybody, brutalizing everybody. He refused to appoint the judges that had been properly nominated by the Judicial Service Commission. So how in the world does this guy understand the word peace so that he can go to Congo and actually bring peace among warring factions if he could not bring peace with his deputy president? Does this man understand the word peace when he refused to recognize that the Judicial Service Commission is an independent body and had done interviews and selected or appointed 6 judges that needed to be appointed? Does this guy know the word peace when he removed me from my country, took my passport, destroyed it, and refused to allow me to come back? Does this man understand the word peace when he refused to meet with Ruto and mediate so that they could come together when the church went to him and said, look, you should have some kind of discussion so that you can at least patch up this disagreement? Does he know peace when he wanted to force the BBI on Kenyans? So no, I completely and 100% oppose the appointment of Uhuru Kenyatta as so-called mediator because he does not understand the word mediation.
Okay. All right.
So Gerald, I did not say anything about 28th of October. That is your own creation.
Okay.
You said I'm coming back on the 20th. Okay. October. So
all right. All right, 20th. For correction's sake, 20th. All right, 20th. 20th of October.
Right.
Yes.
To answer your question, I booked a flight which arrives at 6 a.m. on the 20th of October at the JKIA. However, I have not received confirmation that they have lifted the red alerts. So I'm going to do like I always do, leave my home, board the plane, go to the connecting flight to Nairobi, and hope that this time they will let me board the plane. Because remember, I have done this more than 4 times, and each time I want to connect to Nairobi, I am blocked from connecting because there were red alerts that were issued by the Office of the President through Matiang'i and Kibicho, saying that I should not be allowed to board any plane to Africa. I was not just denied boarding to Nairobi. I couldn't go to Johannesburg. I couldn't go to Accra. I couldn't go to Lagos or Abuja. I couldn't go to Kampala or Dar es Salaam. I was basically told I could not fly to the African continent. I mean, so this is what I've been living with for the last 5 years. And I would have been happier if President Ruto actually did announce, either directly or through any of his surrogates, that they had lifted the red alerts. He has not done so, and I hope he will do so soon. Because for me, it is not a favor. It is a right. And just like he announced that he had invalidated Uhuru Kenyatta's decision not to appoint the 6 judges, mine is worse. The 6 judges were denied a right of work, employment, a livelihood. I've been denied a right to return to my own home. I have a house in Nairobi. I cannot go to my house. I have a home in Kano Plains in Kisumu County. I cannot go to my village home. I cannot attend, and I did not attend the burial rites and funerals of my first cousin, of my brother's wife, of my my father-in-law, and many other relatives, many cousins and nephews that have died since I was forced here. That is a violation beyond any other. And I don't remember anybody in history in Kenya that this has happened to. People talk about Balala, but Balala was not born in Kenya.
Where was Balala?
Balala was in the Middle East. And Balala traveled out of Kenya, and then his passport was cancelled. He was not attacked in Kenya. His house was not destroyed in Kenya. And then his passport was destroyed and he's put in a plane and told he cannot come back. So the two are very different.
Okay. So the red alert has not been lifted.
Yes.
What was his feedback?
I was told that they would be lifted when he returns, but I've not received any confirmation they have been lifted.
When he returns from the US?
I did not say that he told me. Okay. I said I raised it with him.
Okay. You raised it with him, and you are told that he'll lift it when he gets back. I think that's a factual statement.
Yes, that's a factual statement.
All right.
The word vindictiveness before. This is where it is appropriate. Because General, yes. If you come and arrest me for whatever reason, anyone in a civilized society would expect that, number one, you come during the daytime.
Okay.
You introduce yourself, say who you are, and tell me the crime I've committed. You can arrest me and take me to court. And then the court will decide whether to give me bail or not, isn't it?
Yes.
So these people did not do that. They came at night. They were not wearing uniform. They did not come in police vehicles. They did not identify themselves. They basically blasted their way into my house at night. They broke the gate and bombed the house. So that's how they took me, right?
Yes.
So, and then I get court orders. There is something called a habeas corpus order. It's an order from the court saying, produce the body, dead or alive.
Okay.
So I got 2 habeas corpus orders that were not obeyed. I was not produced. And that went on for 6 days. And then eventually, I got another order when they took me to, where was it? Some place in Maasai Land, 100 kilometers away from Nairobi.
Uh-huh.
They took me to court, to a magistrate's court. The magistrate said, no, this is way beyond, above me. Mm-hmm. The High Court is the one with jurisdiction over this case. Take him to Nairobi in 30 minutes. Instead of taking me to court at Milimani, they bundled me into their vehicles, drove like crazy from place to place, and eventually forced me into a plane and took me out of the country.
Okay.
That's illegal, right? So that's what happened. Then I returned in March 2018. They refused to allow me to leave the airport, even though I had obtained more court orders. And they abducted me, tore my clothes in public. I mean, you saw it on TV.
Yes.
Grabbed my clothes, tore them, destroyed my things, stole my money, then detained me in a toilet with no facilities at all except steaming hot water. I couldn't even wash my face. I couldn't brush my teeth. And for 3 days, they kept me there. Then they were jailed for contempt. Then they were told that they could not take me out of the Kenyan jurisdiction. Then they came, broke the bathroom door, which I had locked from inside, grabbed me, wrestled me to the ground, injected me with sedatives, and I regained consciousness at the Dubai International Airport.
Wow.
Tell me what kind of thuggery this is. So that's how I have been here. So I'm saying If President William Ruto does not see this as an egregious crime, then there is something wrong. I would want him to pay attention to this because it's not just me. It's not just me. And the thing is, my rights are as important as any other rights. Anybody who did this to me could do this to anybody else. But they're still walking free. They're laughing. They go to, the other day I saw them at State House at a cabinet meeting as if nothing happened. So this is why I want an assurance that, number one, the red alerts have been lifted. Number two, that my security and safety is guaranteed. Because these people still wield power and influence.
Okay.
These people that did all these things to me are still walking free on the street. And as you can see on a daily basis, people are being murdered on the street every day. Some are murdered at home. Some are just shot up on the street. The other guy was shot, I think, 36 times, a young man in Mwiki. And then we had the other lawyer die mysteriously in his home. So these rogue elements, almost like an assassination squad or squads, are operating with impunity in the Republic of Kenya. Bodies are being found in rivers and unmarked graves. Some have just simply vanished. This is not a situation that is, it's not a laughing matter.
Okay. Let me ask you, Dr. Miguna. You've spoken very passionately.
So
you can be president. You can be president.
Ask a practical question based on reality, my friend. This is not a joke.
I know it's not a joke. And I'm just trying to imagine because... 5
hours. So there is no reason why I would want to start speculating on a mythical, concoction.
The reason why I ask this, Doctor, is because people get passive when it's not about them. Okay.
It's not a favor. I'm not a kid. Nobody's carrying me on his back to come to Kenya. As a matter of fact, they should exactly do that because I did not come here on my own. They should have bought my tickets. They should have reimbursed all the money that I've spent. And I've spent tens of thousands of dollars already in the last 5 years. All right?
Yes.
So that's number one.
Okay.
So they should not and never should see it as a favor. I have a right to be at home just like they do. Who tells them that they have a right to stay at their own house, but not me? Why are they special? What gives you, Gerald, for example, more rights than me? You left your house to come to the studio so that you could interview me. I should be allowed to do that. I should have been very free to come to your studio and be interviewed. Why am I being interviewed from here? Why am I a lesser human being? What is it? Right? So number one, regardless, I'm a human being like you, like them, and should have and has the same rights. Two, it's not a favor. William Ruto is not doing me a favor by returning my passport. He's doing what the law requires him to do. It's a duty. If he has a sense of justice and even common sense, he had to do what he did. All right? So anybody who disagrees with that lives in another world, which I do not want to describe. Three, what is rabble-rousing? I speak the truth the way I know it. If anybody calls that rabble-rousing, hooray, I love it. I will never change. I have always spoken the truth throughout my life, whether it was somebody's right or not. The reason why I disagreed with Moi and I was exiled in 1987 was not because of myself. It was over Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, as a matter of fact. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was denied the right to contest for elections in Kenya, and there was no reason. And he was denied the right to form a party of his own. And people like us took a stand and say, no, that's not a country we want to live in. And we openly challenged Moi and Kanu. I was not doing that for myself. I was not running for elections. I was a student at the University of Nairobi. But did I confess? Did I surrender like Raila did? Or like many of my colleagues did and went to jail for no reason? No, I didn't. And they couldn't take me to court. So they expelled me from the University of Nairobi. Then I decided they were not going to dictate my life. Then I fled into exile. So those people talking about rabble rousing must first of all understand where I come from. I draw the line where justice ends and injustice starts. Anybody who flagrantly violates the rule of law and infringes on other people's rights, I will oppose. So whether it is Ruto, whether it is Uhuru Kenyatta, whether it is Raila Odinga, Miguna will oppose you when you disobey laws, you disobey court orders, you violate people's rights, you torture them, you act like a monarch. So if Ruto wants to act like a monarch, yes, he should be scared of Miguna. If Ruto wants to be governed by the rule of law and the principles of democracy and govern in a way that is that is fair, then Miguna is his buddy, is his ally. Do you understand? Like, I've always stood on the right of justice. If you recall, in 2017, I ran as an independent candidate in Nairobi against Raila Odinga's candidate and Uhuru Kenyatta's candidate in Nairobi. But when I believed that Raila's election had been stolen in 2017, I stood by him championing for electoral justice. I did not care that I had voted for Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta had become president. The moment Uhuru Kenyatta started behaving with impunity and acting as if he was a monarch, I was not his friend. So I make a decision based on that. When Raila Odinga started acting like a monarch also, after I had sworn him in and joined Uhuru and wanted now to impose things on Kenyans, I stood against him. So mine is principle. All these other people talking do not believe in principles. They fear the power, the people in power. They fear they fear to take a stand. They fear the truth. But those people don't matter to me because I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for the principle of it, for the values, and I'm doing this for posterity. And I will continue to do this until I breathe my last on this world.
Okay. Well said.
Up in 2018, it was to demystify Uhuru Kenyatta's presidency and to declare him illegitimate. So it was more symbolic than anything else. It wasn't literal. But I do have a problem with the portrait of the president being hanged at every place. In fact, they are even destroying walls. I saw them destroying walls at the Safaricom meeting where the president went today. That is completely unnecessary and primitive. There is no reason why the president's portrait must be everywhere. There's no reason, all right? You don't see it anywhere else except in Africa. So I think African leaders suffer from low self-esteem. They already have a lot of power. I don't know why they have to see their portraits everywhere. I mean, they have the ADC standing behind them, which does not happen in the Western world, by the way. You don't see an ADC standing behind Trudeau when he speaks. You don't see the same ADC standing behind Biden, and that is supposed to be the most powerful man in the world. You don't see it in China. You don't see it anywhere else except in Africa. So this ADC standing behind, and I think Ruto is trying to get rid of it, should go. You know, ADC is supposed to be a bodyguard. As long as Ruto has bodyguards where he's speaking or where he goes and the security is well maintained, that's all we want. There is no reason for people to stand behind him. There is no reason for his portraits to be all over the place. And there is no reason for His Excellency. First of all, nobody is excellent. Not you, not me, not anybody else.
Okay.
There's nobody who is excellent. So His Excellency is a silly title. And I think it is long overdue for us to get rid of it. Mr. President is good enough, or the Honorable President, if you want. But it's just Mr. President. There is no reason to call it His Excellency. As a matter of fact, I've not called anybody His Excellency. I would not call Ruto His Excellency.
But Dr. Miguna, you don't have a problem with Raila's portrait, but you have a problem.
I think, Gerald, you should pay attention to what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't think you paid attention.
All right.
Uhuru Kenyatta was not validly elected in 2017. I still believe so. So as far as I'm concerned, Uhuru Kenyatta was not a legitimate president. Because he was not a legitimate president, we needed to demonstrate symbolically that we were bringing his portrait down and bringing the portrait of the rightful president up. It was a symbol of resistance. It was not literal.
Okay.
But now, Ruto is a legitimate president. He was elected legitimately, all right? There is no reason why he needs to see his portrait everywhere, unless he suffers from low self-esteem, which I don't think he does. Uhuru did suffer from low self-esteem and needed to see his portraits everywhere. He needed to hear His Excellency everywhere because this man has never been excellent on anything. He failed from nursery school to college. So he's never excelled in anything. And I'm talking from a point of knowledge. Uhuru Kenyatta never passed any exam throughout his life. Ruto has passed his exams. We know the schools he went to. And we know he could not have ended up at the University of Nairobi if he did not pass. Uhuru Kenyatta was taken to St. Mary's because of money, failed at St. Mary's, and was taken to Amherst in the US, and he never graduated. So this man needed to be called His Excellency because he had not achieved anything.
All right, coming back home.
A troubling thing, to tell you the truth. So I agree with you. It's the deaths that are happening are senseless. First of all, I mean, there is no reason why one group of Kenyans should take arms and kill another group because of cattle or anything else for that matter. Because in a country governed by the rule of law, if you have a dispute, you should take it to court. And once the court pronounces itself, you should live with the decision that the court has pronounced. If you're not satisfied, you should appeal.
Okay.
But I also know, as a student of politics, and I studied political science before I did my law, and conflicts resolution, most of the conflicts are resource-based. So people fight over grazing land. People fight over land so that they can use it for agricultural purposes. People fight over water, even though they could say they're fighting over boundary, but ultimately they just want land that they can use so that they could survive on it. So if this is a resource-based conflict where people are fighting over resources because they need a livelihood, then the government should not declare them terrorists. The government should address the resource issue. Resources are scarce, and we have to learn how to utilize them for our well-being. And I think if you address it that way and don't victimize one group or the other, probably they would be able to see that you are not just anti-them, that you are not jingoistic, that you're not blaming them when you do not understand the circumstances under which they live. And that probably would be able to address the problem. But that has to be done with professionals who are very skilled and knowledgeable in conflict resolution. of this nature, linguistic, cultural kind of dispute resolution that is sensitive to the realities of the situation. If it is pure criminality that people just have, bandits have organized, have armed themselves, and are wantonly attacking innocent civilians, then it would be right to call it terrorism. But I am very wary of using the word terrorism because it has been used by many governments and regimes as the excuse for being brutal, or it's a hiding place for the lazy who do not want to analyze and come to terms with the reality of the situation. So I would be very careful before I call it a terrorist organization, notwithstanding the fact that the president has called it so. I don't know enough to be able to call these people terrorists and lazy. First of all, I don't want to even call Uhuru Kenyatta president. He does not deserve the title president. Uhuru did not con Raila Odinga. Uhuru and Raila Odinga failed in their projects to perpetuate impunity in Kenya. So how can they call it a con game when they were dancing all over? I mean, people saw them at the Bomas of Kenya when they were heckling Ruto. So, Gerald, I did not say. I'm hearing myself.
No, sorry, proceed.
So we saw them at the Bomas.
Okay.
We saw them heckling. We saw them behaving like goons. We saw Junet abusing the deputy president on live TV and the president clapping. That's what we saw. We saw Junet saying the president was like a ship that he was going, toothless ship, that he was going to take by force to committee, and that it was not even going to be Raila Odinga. We saw them attack Moses Kuria and a few other people attending BBI functions in Gilu's county, for example, in Mombasa. We saw the thuggery with which Uhuru brutalized the supporters of Ruto. Forget about me. I'm talking now what was happening even within Jubilee. We saw the frustration that Uhuru Kenyatta inflicted on many people because they were supporting Ruto. We saw the destructions of properties all over. We saw the callousness and the impunity with which Uhuru Kenyatta used the internal security ministry, the way he used the police, the people who died in Murang'a, for example, the prevention of rallies in Western, Kisii, and many other places, the denial of meeting place, even at Nyayo Stadium until it was too late. I mean, we saw the desperation, my friend. And it was not for 1 month. It was not for 6 months. It was not for 1 year. It was for 4 years and a half. So anybody, and we saw how they were saying that Raila had 61%, that the National Intelligence Service had told them. We saw this being said from State House by cabinet secretaries. We saw cabinet secretaries saying they were going to make sure Raila was president. Then we saw the abductions of the technicians that the IBC had hired. Then we saw them taking the equipment, including computers and telephones of these people. They call them Venezuelans, but they were just technicians hired by the IBC. We saw them abduct returning officers and presiding officers. We saw 2 returning officers killed in the course of last election. These are lives. We saw them attack Chebukati and his group at the IDC. We saw a uniformed general go to the IBC with members of the National Security Service or committee. We saw Tuju walking all over the place looking for Chebukati as if ready to abduct him. We saw Cherera and her opaque group going in a choreographed press conference at the Serena. We saw Buru saying that the deep state was going to give Raila power because that's the only thing they lack. My friend, we had David Murathe speak. We had Atwoli speak for 4.5 years. These could not be con games. We saw money being distributed in sacks in Mombasa and everywhere. We saw Joho and Junet wearing military uniforms, or at least what they had already, gone and tailored that this was their new uniform to take power. These were not games. The meetings in Sagana were not games. The money given in Sagana and the night meetings in Kisumu were not games. When Uhuru, up to now, has not publicly congratulated William Ruto for having been declared president, this is not a game. So no, there was no con game. Raila Odinga conned himself by betraying me and other Kenyans, and he deserves everything he's gotten.
All right. There was no game?
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is wrong 1,000,000%.
Okay.
You see, we have to be able to tell them this, because otherwise they would think that because people voted for them, they have the right to say anything and do anything. No, they don't. He doesn't have the right just to speak about anything the way he wants. He has to be very responsible. He has to be very thoughtful. And he has to be careful about what he says. He has power now. He's not Miguna. I can speak because I don't hold any public office. The moment I hold public office, everything I say has to be weighed, has to be carefully communicated, because you don't want to give a wrong signal. The signal is given now is that people are free to invade the forest and start cutting down trees and planting whatever they want to plant. That is a wrong message. You see, you can't do that when everywhere you go in the Republic of Kenya, forests have turned into semi-arid areas. This is the truth. Go to Rift Valley, all of it was forested. Most of it now is not covered in forest. The rivers are dying because the forest cover has been decimated by people, all right? There is no way you are going to give people a chance to plant in the forest without creating havoc. You will not be able to control it. So what he's doing is wrong. It is unscientific. It has never worked anywhere. It will not work in Kenya. What he's doing is what Bolsonaro is doing in Brazil, cutting down the rainforest. It is wrong in the 21st century when climate change is a big thing. The world is so hot, is getting hotter, and is threatening the livelihood of billions of people. We cannot continue to tolerate that kind of loose talk because it is destructive to the well-being of our own children and our children's future. So yes, I oppose it.
You oppose it, all right? Secondly,
the last thing.
Okay, proceed, sir.
I saw Ahmed Nasir post something that is also right. It also is a license for people who want to grab forest land, because this is what happened during Moi's time. People invaded the Mau forest and built houses, turned it into plantations and whatnot. Greed will take over. We must stop regarding now on the Shamba system, or we will regret what we will see in the next 10 years.
Okay, all right. Secondly,
for the president to do. Number one, you don't make such major foreign policy decisions by tweet.
No.
That is what Trump was doing, but that has to be discouraged. When you are running a government, government must be by cabinet,
Okay.
right? A lot of these major decisions have to be, first of all, reduced to a policy paper, discussed thoroughly by experts and the cabinet, and either ratified or not ratified by the cabinet before they are announced. So that's number one. In terms of process, that process was not a process. So you want to get away from that. You want to get away from governing through the hip. You wake up, you get a twitch, and you tweet and you announce a policy direction. That is authoritarian, okay? You don't want authoritarianism creeping in the administration, all right? Number two, it was bad politics. It was retrogressive politics. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe in self-determination. I am committed to the liberty of Africans, not Arabs, even if they live in Africa, all right? Mm-hmm. I believe in the liberty of Africans, Black Africans. So when you say that Sahrawi Republic, which is domiciled by indigenous Africans, is not recognized, even though it is recognized by the AU, it is recognized by the UN, but you are deliberately just writing a tweet and saying you don't recognize it. That is a major, major mistake. And I'm glad that he realized the mistake and immediately deleted the tweet. So that was the right thing to do. He made a mistake like a human being and he deleted the tweet. So I liked that. Okay. But I don't expect that mistake to be repeated because of fertilizer or any other thing that the Moroccans are promising. Morocco is a monarchy. It is not a democracy. Kenya is not a monarchy. So between the Sahrawi Republic and the monarchy, I would rather the indigenous people of Southwest Africa, it's Northwest, isn't it?
Yes.
The Sahrawi Republic, I would rather the indigenous people who live there than the monarchy, all right, of Morocco. Even at the detriment of the little crumbs that they could be offering to the regime. We have to be Pan-African. We have to believe in the self-determination of Africans, and we must respect the indigenous rights of the people of Sahrawi.
All right, so you maintain that you must respect the indigenous rights of the people of Sahrawi, and you stand against any position to recognize Morocco against Sahrawi. All right?
No, that is not even the correct position.
Okay.
The people of Sahrawi are not saying Morocco should not continue to be Morocco. They want Morocco to be Morocco, but they also want to
Sahrawi
be independent. It's like Eritrea and Ethiopia.
Yeah.
You know, Eritrea went on its own, and they have a right to be on their own, and Ethiopia remained on its own.
Okay.
I think the criticisms are unfair to Ruto on this one. Number one, constitutionally, Ruto has the prerogative, really absolute right under the Constitution, to name his cabinet. He does not name his cabinet to please me or to please you or to please anybody else.
Okay.
He was elected president, and he has the right to choose the people that he believes can help him fulfill his promises to the Kenyan people. So to that extent, I think that it is important that we give him a free hand to construct his government. All right? So if he makes a mistake and constructs a defective government that does not fulfill, then he would have failed. Then the people criticizing him should be happy, then they can replace it in the next election. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, I also think it is unfair, the people who are saying that Ruto appointed politicians. Politicians can be appointed and should be appointed. Before Murkomen became a politician, he was a lawyer. So are people saying his brain stopped working when he joined politics? So he's no longer a lawyer. How about Kindiki? We saw Kindiki arguing at the Supreme Court. Did he argue less than the other lawyers because he's a politician? He was as cogent and as persuasive as any other lawyer. Orengo is a lawyer and goes to court and argues as a lawyer. Does he stop being Orengo because now he's won the garb of a politician? And you know, these people are very hypocritical. When it is Orengo, they don't make that criticism. When it is Anyang' Nyong'o, they don't make that criticism. When it is other people who have gone to school, had PhDs, and then go into politics, that criticism is never made. But when Ruto does it, there is a criticism. So I think they are very, very unfair. These people are hypocrites because I think this is the best cabinet we've had in a very long time, to tell you the truth, other than the first cabinet at independence.
Okay.
Really, this is better than Kibaki's cabinet. This is better than Uhuru, both Uhuru's cabinets, except maybe one or two people.
Okay.
For example, I have a problem with Professor Ndung. I don't think he should be the Minister for Treasury because he failed when he was governor, and he's not somebody who can turn around the economy. So I have a problem with that. All right? But of course, the president must know why he appointed him. It's not my prerogative, but I have the freedom to say what I'm saying. I have a problem with the Minister of Health, who I don't think understands health. She has a diploma, basically, as far as I'm concerned, in some unrelated field, you know, maybe distant cousins to medicine. I don't think that is the appropriate person to handle the very important docket of health. It's like Uhuru appointing Charity Ngilu Minister of Health, like he did, which is wrong. Or Kibaki appointing Uhuru's cousin, what was her name? Beth Mugo, as Minister of Health. This is wrong. I'm not saying that a minister must be appointed to the docket they studied. I think that is not correct.
Okay.
Because all you need to understand is public policy and how that relates to the service that you're going to provide in that docket, in terms of how policy is going to be conceived and prepared for purposes of implementation. But there are people who cannot understand public policy. We know just looking at their resumes that they are ill prepared to do that. But the rest of the picks, I think, are excellent. I like the pick of Kindiki, for example. I think it is an excellent choice. I think Murkomen is an excellent choice. Yeah. Even Lethika Linturi is an excellent choice for Minister of Agriculture. And there are many, many other positions that I think are excellent choices. So, yes, you don't get it all right, like all human beings, and you can't please everyone. But on balance, I think the cabinet is very well balanced. The cabinet is well thought out. And I think this is a cabinet that could deliver. But they are not 25. I think you say 25, they are only 22. The maximum number of cabinet secretaries in the Constitution is 22. The other appointments are cabinet level. They are not cabinet secretaries. They are advisors that will sit in the cabinet as the prerogative of the president. I mean, it's a privilege. They don't have a right as per the Constitution to be called cabinet secretaries.
Okay, still on the cabinet.
I've asked the public service to collect views on a matter the court has settled. There is a valid court order that declared those positions unconstitutional, and that remains the position legally. So those are illegal positions, and they should go permanently. They have no place in the Kenyan governance structure. They are alien to the Constitution, They are a burden to the taxpayers. They add no value to Kenya.
Okay, so your position is it should remain illegal as it was ruled by the court. CDF.
If I was appointed in a CAS, I would not take it because it's an illegal position.
You would never take it.
I would occupy an illegal office.
CDF.
CDF also correctly, the court held that members of parliament and legislators, they are not administrators. CDF should not be with members of parliament. You see, the problem I have with Kenyans is that it is as if Kenyans don't understand the system that they have. Our system is crafted in the Constitution. We have a presidential system, not a parliamentary system. In a presidential system, the member of parliament must not expend public money in any implementing capacity because his or her position is to oversight the expenditure of public funds. They're supposed to be like public auditors on a daily basis on behalf of of Kenyans. So the moment you allow them to encroach in that position, it's a conflict of interest because they cannot audit themselves. Who is auditing them?
Okay.
And in fact, we all know how members of parliament use CDF. It is not as glorious as many people say. That is the money they use to drive around, including going to pick up slay queens. That is the money they used for drinking. That is the money they use for their barazas. That's the money they use for campaigning. It's legitimate.
Okay, it is legitimate.
One, I pity the president because what was he to do?
Okay.
People are starving, and if he didn't do something to alleviate the hunger, I think a lot of people would criticize it and would say, what is he doing to address the situation of hunger? So if there were donations and there was food available and it could help Kenyans who are starving, I have nothing to criticize because I'm one person who has gone through hunger when I was growing up. So I know what it means. So when somebody is hungry, they need food. They don't care about the politics. They don't care about whether this has been a song from independence. They just want food now so that they can stay alive. So if that food can get to them through the flagging, all good to them. I have no criticism. It's only after that that I would say we have to come to a position where we are going to be food secure.
Okay.
That we are going to produce food enough for our people, and it can be done. Luckily, for President Ruto, he's been Minister of Agriculture, he studied zoology and botany, he's done his PhD in that field, and he's generally passionate about agriculture. So I hope that he's going to tackle this problem head on and that we are going to start a journey where food will not be something that causes death in the Republic of Kenya. But it's not food. It's also healthcare. We have to get to a position where healthcare becomes a universal, compulsory thing for all Kenyans and free.
Okay.
And free. I mean exactly that. In this country where I am, healthcare is absolutely free. You don't pay doctors, all right? You don't pay nurses. You don't pay anybody in the health care center. If you are sick, you go to a hospital and you get treated. The only thing you pay for, if you don't have insurance, is medicine. But if you are unemployed, you also don't pay for that. And nobody should tell us that these countries are older than Kenya. Kenya is older than Canada.
Okay.
You know, life began in Africa. Life did not begin in North America. So we are older in terms of how long we've been around. Our civilizations are older. So the creation of the Republic of Kenya should not be the judging or the basis of us saying we cannot do it. We have enough resources. Most of the resources are stolen. If you brought even 50% of what the Kenyatta family has stashed abroad, it's enough to eradicate poverty, eradicate hunger, and eradicate unemployment, and eradicate this health crisis. I mean it, literally.
Okay. All right. CBC has been criticized widely. Do you think we experiment too much with our children? And are there legal provisions to protect them?
Yes, we do. First of all, I don't like the fact that they got rid of the system that I went through. All right? Mm-hmm. The 7 years in primary school, 4 years in secondary school, 2 years in advanced level, 3 years at the university level. I don't like the fact that they got rid of it. There was no reason for it. Mm-hmm. The British system that they copied is still there, exactly the way it was. It's not been tinkered with because it works. You don't change anything that works. If it works, don't fix it. That system worked. It needed no fixing. Then they copied the 844 system, which I think Aringo copied from Canada because he studied his master's at the University of Toronto. So he came to Kenya, and when he was Minister of Education, he influenced Moi to bring the 844 system because he did not even understand the system when he did his master's in the University of Toronto. And then they have experimented with Kenyans under the 844 system, and now they want to bring something else. I think it is wrong to do that. This so-called competency-based curriculum, they don't even understand it. And from what I have seen, it is scary to me. I don't want any kid going through what I've seen. I don't want the parents being burdened by what I've seen the parents in Kenya burdened with. And it is distracting. The amount of time and resources Kenyans have used to discuss it is not necessary, it's not warranted. So yes, I think Kenyans get to experiment too much with our children to their detriment. And unfortunately, I think they're doing this just for deals. I think they're doing this just to line their pockets. And that is what is so tragic about it. That it is not because of the children. It is not because of love of education. It is because some people are greedy and want to make deals or new books, a new curriculum, whatever, that has to be bought. And they just want to line their pockets.
Okay, so it's not in the interest of children.
Well, Nyanza is part of Kenya.
Yes.
And there is no place actually in the administration of Kenya in terms of governance that is called Nyanza. So it's a historical, what do we call it? It's some kind of, we are latching back to some kind of history that is no longer operational as we speak, because the word Nyanza is amorphous, okay? Most people, when they say Nyanza, they mean Luos.
Luo Nyanza, that is.
Yeah, they're not talking about Isis, they're not talking about the Korea, they're not talking about other people who live in Nyanza but are not Luos. So let's talk about what they are talking about. I think they are talking about Luos.
Yes, Luo Nyanza. Or Luos, let's be more specific. Right.
The Luo nation is a nation like any other. But unlike any other, the Luo nation has its leadership organically emerge, usually from the struggles that the people engage in on a day-to-day. So that's how leaders emerge among the Luo nation. Leaders, Luos, are not a kingdom, even though they have held form kingdoms in other places, like when they passed through Uganda. So Luos are not a kingdom. We are not a monarchy. We don't have a king. Raila Odinga is not a king, was never a king, even though he would like to be. So there is no king that will be anointed among the Luo. So anyone who is waiting for anointment will be there for a surprise, because there will be no ceremony for anybody to be anointed. Raila had no and still has no legal, political, moral, cultural grounds to anoint anyone. However, it would have been good if, like our ancestors and elders of yore, he allowed the organic, dynamic means of leaders emerging to take place without him artificially chopping people's heads off, or legs, or lives, because that's what he has done. Whenever you present a potential Raila wants your head off, I mean, that's apparently what he did when he conspired with Uhuru to have me exiled, because he was insecure. I had. He was insecure that by administering the oath on him when everybody else had run away, the Luos had recognized me as a potential leader. That's what I had. And he felt threatened enough to conspire with Uhuru for my house to be destroyed, and potentially the intention was to kill me. He failed. So right now, what he has been doing is trying to chop off the heads of everyone that he thinks may be potential. For example, Kidero was governor of Nairobi. He made sure Kidero was not governor twice. I said he made sure because he was part of the scheme that convinced Kidero not to petition against Sonko's alleged victory. And then when Kidero went to Homa Bay, he has orchestrated a scheme to ensure that Kidero does not become governor because of that fear. All right? Everybody else that has worked with Raila Odinga that he even suspects might have a potential, he chops their legs off. That's unfortunate, because that is a disease that people with low self-esteem and those with no ability to lead suffer from. They see opponents everywhere and they fear enemies from every corner, including those who are trying to prop them up. So, to come back to your question, the Luo nation will choose their leaders the way they have always done, organically.
Okay.
And Raila's term has come to an end. He is not relevant anymore. He's politically dead, even though he still has signs of life through kicks and other movements, like when he went to Kisumu to impose the speaker and the leader of the majority. He nearly lost the leader of the majority by 1 vote. So that tells you he's dead politically and should be buried very soon. Then the Luos will do what they have to do. They will come up with who their leaders are in terms of getting direction from those that are able to give that direction. But there will be no anointment. There will be no ceremony.
There'll be no anointment. There'll be no ceremony. So it was raised their own leader.
Its meaning.
What was it?
I saw 5 people walking. I think they were members of. They could even have been 3 members of parliament walked to IBC with some with youth running around, right?
Yes.
But first of all, really, IBC is an independent institution, right? So if IBC interdicts one of the decisions that the court has pronounced, my friend, I don't know what you're doing with my voice.
I'm sorry, please proceed.
So what I'm saying is that I don't understand why they feel that they needed to petition the IBC for interdicting one of its officers, unless they are confessing that Ms. Kulundu was one of the opaque officers within the IBC that were trying to undermine the rule of law and impose him as president. I mean, it's like they're coming from the woodworks. They're coming and confessing on their own who their agents were. So we already know Cherera and a group of 3, and now Ms. Kulundu has just been exposed by Asimio. But I didn't see anything much. I mean, these people are not capable of organizing a demonstration to begin with. And secondly, that is not a cause for which a demonstration could be organized. So they would be organizing a demonstration to protect Ms. Kulundu, a position. There is a labor court and the High Court. Ms. Kulundu could access the courts if she feels aggrieved. What does she need demonstrations for?
All right. So the demonstrations were very...
Should get the act together. Meaning, young Kenyans should know what their interests are vis-a-vis where they want to go and pursue it. Pursue it in an organized fashion. So young Kenyans must organize themselves. If you feel that your interests are not represented, say, for example, in the political organizations or parties or formations that exist today in Kenya, form your own political party or movement or organization and pursue your interests. If you recall, because this is a good example, just last year, President Ruto did not have a party. And he was told that he could not access the Jubilee building in Pangani, that if he was seen there, he would be arrested or assaulted. Tuju said that, Murabe said that, they locked him out, literally. So he couldn't operate. They were chasing him from his own government facilities in Mombasa and many other places. What did he do? We should really learn from that. Did he sit by, twitched his fingers, cried on his laps, and wailed on the streets? No. What did he do? He got his troops together. He told them we have to build another house, a house of our own, and we have to chart our own path. He formed a party. He mobilized around that party. And the rest is history. What he did is what exactly the youth must do. Organize. Have your own organization. Either join organizations that represent your aspirations and interests, or if they don't, form your own and pursue your interests. When I say pursue your interests, I don't mean selfish, parochial, individual interests. I mean national collective interests, interest of employment, interests of justice, interest of equity, interest of democracy, interest of inclusivity. Those are the values that should be uniting young people, not the fact that you're a Kikuyu, or a Meru, or a Kisi, or a Kalenjin, or a Luo. These are retrogressive, divisive identity kind of politics that will never bring change. So we have to go above that and find what unites us, right? And what I say you or we, I mean the young people, to your question. I hope I've...
All right. Do you have any comments to make on yesterday? Yesterday, there were breaking news that we had lost lawyer Paul Gisheru. Do you have any comments? Do you wish to make any comments on that?
I usually don't like to comment on things I don't understand. It was a tragic loss. It was a very, very tragic loss. What I don't understand are the conflicting information coming from his family vis-a-vis what I'm reading. Number one, because he was charged at The Hague, and because the allegations touched on the president, I think the insinuations are obvious when you read the Githeri media. It's not, you don't need to be a nuclear physicist to be able to see through what they are trying to say. But then the family said that they were supposed to release a statement today. I listened to my lawyer, Dr. Kamenwa, who I think represents the family. And he said the family was saying that he was not poisoned. I don't know how they know that, because I understand autopsy has not been done. But that's what they said. They also said that the young man, the son, was distraught and was taken to hospital not because he had food poisoning, but because he collapsed because he was very unhappy that his father died. So I think until we know what actually happened, I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to talk about things I don't know, because I'm not very good at retracting. So I don't want to say something and then have to come back and retract.
Then you say you'll be squatted.
I want to be right.
34 minutes past 7 p.m.
So this is unsolicited advice to President Ruto. Many people want him to fail.
Okay.
Many people would want to do everything to make sure that he fails. Many people expect him to fail. So I think he should disappoint them by not failing. That's number one. Refuse to fail. Number two, Ruto, unlike any other politician, has been accused of corruption more than any other. So it is in his best interest to make sure that he controls or eliminates scandals in his administration. If those scandals are going to come from the so-called public-private partnership, so be it. Don't engage in them if they're going to bring corruption into your administration. You don't need it. He has enough baggage and enough burden to deal with respect to the issues that are facing Kenyans. Number three, I don't like the Nairobi Expressway, the way it was conceived and constructed. It was deceptive, just like the SGR, and it would lead to the public losing a lot of money. Kenya is not at a position where the public should be forced to pay toll stations to be able to use a road. We are a poor country. Most people are barely managing to survive. When you build a good road, everybody should be able to use it. It is wrong to build exclusive highways that are only used by the rich. I think that is something that I would not do if I was president. And I would audit this so-called Nairobi Expressway like I would audit forensically all the other expenditures that Uhuru Kenyatta has undertaken. And I would want to bring the money back that has been stashed. And I think the earlier it is done, the better. He should be able to acquit himself that all the allegations that were being made against him were false by how he conducts himself. Lastly, business is legitimate and legal in every country of the world.
Okay.
So no one can say that seeing a businessman visit Kenya or attend the inauguration is a bad thing. Dangote is the richest African. Mm-hmm. Attending the inauguration and probably investing in Kenya is a commendable thing. He did not steal his billions from Kenyans. So why should a Kenyan say Dangote should not invest in Kenya? The guy from Turkey was victimized for political reasons. There was no reason why the man was jailed or or abducted and detained and then deported to Turkey. I mean, why was he being chased away like a criminal when the man has no criminal record, has not been arrested in Kenya and tried and convicted? He should be free to associate with whoever he wants. Associating with the president is not a crime, even if you're a businessman.
Okay.
I mean, do these people think that Ruto stopped being a human being just because now he's president? What we do not want him to do is use his office to capture business or to capture any sector of the economy like the Kenyatas did, at the country's detriment.
Okay. All right. The issue...
Question you've asked, but I will answer it.
Okay.
Not the idea. I'm not talking about the idea. I'm saying the way it is being convoluted.
Okay.
Let me answer it. Number one, Mutiambai and Kinoti should never have held public office.
Okay.
These are criminals. They should never have come close to a public office. The same with Kibicho, the same with Matiani. All right, so it was very wrong to have appointed them because all they did for the entire period they were in those offices was to abuse their offices, to persecute those that they believed were either had fallen out of favor with Uhuru Kenyatta or were critical of the way Uhuru Kenyatta was conducting the affairs of state. Secondly, they have committed crimes against humanity, against Kenyans. The number of people, these two, have presided over their deaths extrajudicially is a matter that requires a judicial inquiry, an independent judicial inquiry. Okay. And then they should face the law. This is not victimizing them. This is called accountability. Everything that you do when you hold public office, which is donated power, you must account for the people that donated that power to you. So it was good that they resigned. They should have resigned when President Ruto took the oath of office. They should not have been allowed to stay for this long to cover their tracks, to destroy evidence, and to eliminate witnesses that could testify against them. I think that was a mistake by President Ruto. They should have gone that time so that they had no time to cover their tracks. Even allowing the Attorney General, Kihara, to have stayed this long, even Kinyua, who sent the team that went to the Bomas of Kenya to interfere with Chebukati, is wrong in my view.
All right.
Yes, I know that he's trying to look diplomatic and whatnot. It doesn't help him. It shows indecisiveness, which we do not want to see. Kenyans do not want to see an indecisive president. Kenyans do not want to see a weak president. Kenyans do not want to see a president that is tolerating criminality and impunity. So yes, all these ravages of Uhuru Kenyatta should have gone a long time ago. And right now, they should be fretting every single day, waiting for that knock on the door, summoning them to answer to all the charges against them.
All right.
It's a credit system. What you have is not a system.
What is it?
You have
Shylock
Shakism.
system.
You have Shakism.
Okay.
What you call lenders are sharks. In real economic terms, they are not lenders. These are predatory lenders. So if you add the adjective predatory, then you could call them lenders, but with the adjective predatory. They prey on the weak and the desperate in order to make money. It is fraud, covered up in law. They should be shut down permanently. All right?
Okay.
They are not lenders. Interest should not be addressed the way that Kenyans are addressing interest. interest rates. Yes, I know the president is trying to intervene on something that he feels dear to him, given the so-called bottom-up economic program. But interest rates all over the world are controlled by the central bank. They are not controlled by the executive. Unfortunately, the central bank in Kenya does not function as a central bank. That is why the current governor should go. I don't think he understands his job. He's a good Christian, but he's not a good central banker. He has not realized that it is his mandate to regularize interest rates and to do it in such a way that bolsters the economy and protects Kenyans. He thinks is to preside over interest rates that makes money for the rich, the Kenyatas and the Mungas and the billionaires of the world. So President Ruto's intervention should be very limited because it is not regular that a president intervenes in that manner. The sharks should be dealt with by the criminal justice system, the DPP and the DCI, if they were doing their job, should shut down the sharks and possess or seize their assets, the money that they have laundered from Kenyans. Now, CRB is being abused because a lot of these people that are on CRB have no ability even to have credit. A person with no bank account cannot have credit. A lot of these people have no bank account. You can't even track their borrowing. The things that are called loans are not loans, as I said. They are like what is called in North America, payday loans. You take your check there, they take it, and they charge you interest, and you pay more than what you took. Even here, they are regulated. You're not supposed to charge more than 15% in North America. The highest you can charge anybody is 15%. And very few people take any loan with 15% because that's interest only. And the AAA banks do not charge more than 7%. They're not allowed to charge more than 7% because the central bank regulates them and controls interest rate. That is why the economies here are organized. That is why the currencies are stable. That is why the housing market is stable. That is why they cannot go belly up, right?
Yes.
So we have to manage the economy the way it is tested and proven that it works. And I'm sorry to say this, I'm not sure that Professor Njuguna will be the one to do it, nor Njoroge. I also have a problem with two Kikuyus being at the head of the treasury. I think this I have to speak about. I am not a tribalist, but I'm very sensitive when only one community controls one sector of the economy since independence. I think it sends a very bad message to the country. I think we have to end this cycle. The same with the military. We cannot have only two communities controlling the military. So we have to show Kenyans that other communities are also capable because we have capable people all over the country. If you are rewarding support from any specific community, don't overdo it. This is my caution to President Ruto. Don't overdo it. Don't overplay your hand because you're sending a bad message to the country. You want unity, you want inclusivity. You don't want to create an artificial superstructure, communities that are elevated over others. That is wrong. All right? And unfortunately for me, or for them, I say it the way it is. Now, regarding, so we were talking about interest.
Then tax regime. Our taxation regime. Our taxation regime.
The taxation regime. Yeah, that's a very good question. Kenyans are overtaxed. And there is no reason why Kenyans continue to be overtaxed. The taxation regime all over the world is between 15 to 30% of income, all right? Gainful income. Kenyans tax things that are not income. If you go to do a transaction at the bank today, because probably you won a judgment in court, it's most likely they will tax you. They are not supposed to tax that money. They're not supposed to tax court judgments, for example. I'm just giving you as an example. If you earn a living, the tax should be based on how much you earn. It cannot be 30% for everybody. It should be a graduated tax, like it happens everywhere, even here. Here, if you earn less than a certain amount of money, say $20,000 a year, you're not taxed. If you earn more than that, you are taxed in a graduated way until it reaches $1 million. Those who earn $1 million plus are taxed at a different rate. The average citizen, the so-called middle class, are taxed between 25 and 30%, not more. But millionaires are not taxed at that percentage. Millionaires are taxed probably 50%. So if you want to get a lot from the rich so that you can help the poor, tax the rich more than you tax the poor. That's how it works all over the world. So if you tax a trillionaire 50% of the trillions they make every year, that would be enough to rejuvenate the economy. But if you're going to tax Mama Mboga 30%, you're not building the economy, you're destroying it. Because Mama Mboga needs to inject back the profit into the business so that it can grow. That's just a lawyer speaking. You have not even started with the economists.
Okay. Even lawyers, they consume the economy. They can speak on it as well. So it means it will get to us if we get an economist. Anyway, I think we'll stick.
No, I'm just saying,
in the interest of our peace of mind.
giving to you in a very, plain language that I think most people will understand from someone who is not an economist, but who has common sense of how the systems work.
All right. Now, finally, I'll give
William Ruto started on the right foot by acting decisively to swear in the judges. The second thing I would like him to do is to lift the red alerts against me. The third thing I would like him to do is to make sure that he governs strictly as the law prescribes, the Constitution and the laws of Kenya. Fourthly, President William Ruto must avoid disobeying court orders. Fifthly, President William Ruto should maintain the stance he's taken towards the independent institutions, such as the judiciary, the police, the IBC, provide and ensure, facilitate provision of adequate budgetary allocations as prescribed by law so that they maintain their independence. Sixthly, President Ruto should not muzzle Parliament, the Senate, and the National Assembly the way Uhuru did. And lastly, he must watch against mafia that might ruin his honeymoon by engaging in major corruptions or abuse of power. If he does that, then I can see him making a big difference for the people of Kenya.
As you are to your penalty shots,
are embassies necessary? Yes, they are, because Kenya is a nation state, and the nation states operate within a global society and need presence in other countries and international organizations such as the UN and other international or multinational organizations. So yes, embassies are necessary.
Okay.
The second question is, have embassies or Kenyan embassies played their proper role? No, they have not. But they have done that because most people appointed to embassies have been political hacks with no interest in public service, with no accountability to the people except the appointing authority, because number one, they may not have been qualified to be ambassadors. Number two, they had no interest in serving the people they went there to serve. So for example, my good friend Oginga Ogego, who is the ambassador to Saudi Arabia, has said nothing, done nothing, despite hundreds of Kenyans being killed in Saudi Arabia. That's an ambassador who should be recalled. And there are many who should be recalled. And then people who care about the country, who care about the vision of the administration in power, should be appointed to serve Kenyans and serve Kenyans the way they ought to. Because the embassies, first of all, are supposed to serve the interest of Kenyans abroad, but they are also supposed to serve the interest of the president and the state that they represent. So all embassies should do this. They are not doing that now. And I hope they will do that in this administration.
All right. Your 5 minutes of penalty shot.
I don't have any penalties. I think what I've said is enough.
All right.
Because I have provided a critique, which I believe is reasonable and balanced. And there is nothing else I have not said. And as I said, I've not pulled back. I've not muzzled myself. I've not withheld saying things because I supported William Ruto's campaign. No. I have said what I would say even if somebody else was president.
All right. Minor, anything? Hold back to and there.
Just one more comment.
Yes.
Kenyans complaining that President Ruto is playing too much had no problem with President Uhuru Kenyatta drinking too much or using State House as a drinking den. So that's my last shot.